Hello everybody, this is Sarah Scott and Janet Osolak from Hour 25, and we are looking again at Chicago Homer. And Sarah,
last time we talked about browse, and that was really helpful. Can we also do search on Chicago Homer?
Yes, certainly we can. So I'm just going to screen share and I will run through some of the ways that you can do searches. So we were in the browse section here, but if we go to the search button here at the top, we go to search box, and here's the window in which you type in your search term, and it defaults to transliterated, and that's probably the easiest way to do a search, particularly if you don't have a keyboard set up to Greek or something like that. And the other thing that's quite handy is you can also use a wildcard character. So if you're not quite sure what the ending is, then you can type in the beginning part of it, put a wildcard at the end, and then you don't need to worry about whether you've got the right ending or not. You can also put a wildcard at the beginning, so you can search, for example, for related terms. The word study group looking at oinops, one of the things we were curious about was whether you could look for other terms that ended with that ops, OPS, or Omicron psi ending. And it's very, very easy to do something like that. So the wildcard character is a %, and then what we type in is OPS. Now that's a little different from Perseus, where you have to type in a single character to represent the single Greek character. I think it's a Y you would use, but here you can actually put PS for psi.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a little chart to show what you would type in depending on whether you're in Perseus or Chicago Homer, and that will be available on Hour 25. So we've got lemma forms, and we can then click on search, and it goes into the word list section, and it shows you the lemma form, the basic form of all the words that end in ops that occurs at least once in the Homeric and Hesiod texts. And we can see, if we scroll down, look down the list, the third one down is oinops, which is the adjective wine-faced, sometimes translated as wine dark. But there are lots of others as well. So again, as with everything else, you can just click on it and it gives you a concordance view, and it shows you all the passages where that adjective occurs. And as we saw before, you can click on an individual passage to get into the context, and you can see the whole passage. Click on search again, and we're back to the concordance view, so we can examine another passage. Go to word list, and we're back to our list of words that we searched on.
So to go back, you don't just go on the screen, you have to go to the search.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you have to.
And just remembering that the query form is where you type it in, the word list is the results, and the concordance, and it remembers the last one we looked at, gives you the list of passages, and then from there you can click into any. So I'll give another similar example where we perhaps know the beginning of a word, and maybe we might want to think about words that are related to the, say, the word manus. and we know that it's M. In our source book, it's E with a line over the top. In Percy's, it would be an H to represent that eta character, but here you do ME and then a circumflex to represent that eta, and then we can do N to represent nu, and then we can do the percent sign, and for a wildcard we can do a search, and this time our word list shows a list of words that start with those letters. Now, first of those is a particle. That's probably not related to the word for anger. Second one is menis, which is the word that we know, first word in the Iliad. And there's some others. There's a verb, menio, and so forth. So we could perhaps look at that. See the passages that it's used. And we can see it's in different forms depending on what tense it's in. Let's have a look at this one in context. And it's got meni akaioisin, translated as be angry at the Achaeans. So it sounds as if this is a verb form. And we can check that, just click on the word. We get the word form here, back to that lemma form that we saw. And as before, you can click on LSJ to go look up the meaning of the word. And it means to become angry. And in this case, it's going to be related to menis, which is that cosmic anger. We'll go back to the search. And we're back at our list, our concordance list. We can just go back straight to the query form if we want to do different sorts of searches.
Yeah, I see the frequency and word type. How do we use them?
Okay, that allows us to do much more detailed sorts of searches, and we've got all sorts of different boxes, as you pointed out. You can change the number of times that it appears if you want to look at things that occur very frequently rather than just things that occur at least once. You can choose whether you're looking at all the works in the corpus in Chicago Homer or just one or other of the books. And you can choose different kinds of word and all sorts of other things. So, for example, you can just look at personal names. Under the word type, you can click name person, and under inflectional categories, let's look for masculine names. And we'll look for nominative, that is the base form of the word where they're the subject of the sentence. And we can do the search. And here we've got a list of male names that appear everywhere, and some of them will be fairly easy to work out. Zeus, Achaios, Achaean, Odysseus, our friend Odysseus. Some of them perhaps a little less familiar. Apollon is Apollo. Yeah. Aias, which is usually rendered as Ajax in English. So let's have a look at Achilles, Achilleus, which is the sixth one down in the list. And we've got our familiar concordance view. It lists all the places where the name Achilles appears everywhere. Now, we looked, as you remember, for the nominative form, but it's picking up all the forms. So how do we find where it's actually in the nominative in the text? We go back to the query form, and then we can put word form, and that will pick up that specific form. And now you can see that it's split out. You've got the name and the number of times it occurs, say Achilles, 384 times, but in the nominative, in two slightly different variations, it only appears 173 times and 35 times in a slightly different spelling, with just a single L for some reason. I think that's to do with meter, whether it's a long or a short. So then you can click on the nominative name, and it's all nominative. See, it's all like this, Achilleus. Another thing perhaps worth pointing out, that the form of the name might look a little strange here. It's not in Greek anymore, it's in a transliteration. And the transliteration here is slightly different from what we saw when we were typing in a search pattern. This is much more familiar from how you would look at it on Perseus. The asterisk means a capital letter. The closing angle bracket represents a smooth breathing. It's like the little comma that points that way. And then towards the end you can see a forward slash, and that represents an acute accent on the vowel just before it. So it looks a little bit strange to start with, but once you know what those little rules are, forward slash for acute accent, a backslash will be for a grave accent, and like here in troes, an equals sign, that represents circumflex or tilde.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, you could narrow the searches down quite considerably, and you can change what you're looking for. It's already remembered what we'd set up before. So say you wanted to look for female names, you would just click on female and then repeat the search, and then we get female names. That second one with the Q, that's Athene. Capital letter, smooth breathing, alpha, the Q representing the theta, the H representing the eta. So it's Athene. Okay. Now suppose you want to do a different sort of search for something else. Remember that it's still remembered your previous searches, so unless you clear it, it's going to try and find all this in addition to whatever you're searching for. So make sure you click on the reset button, and it clears everything from the search, and you can start from scratch. So another example we could try is to look at, say, where verbs are used in the speech, where people are talking about their own actions in the present tense. In other words, first person present tense verb. So if we go to the word type, instead of person name, this time we'll pick verb, and then we're going to look for the present tense. We'll say indicative, that's just the basic form of the verb, and active, and first person singular, that is like I do, I see, that kind of thing. Another nifty little thing further down, we haven't looked at these yet. I'll just mention in passing that you can restrict it to certain line ranges if you want to, if you're just looking, say, at one particular scroll or something like that. Now we wanted to look at where this is used in speech. So in this case, within speech or narrative, we'll select speech. And let's make mortality mortal rather than immortal. And let's look at female speakers. So this will look for the form, what verbs are used by female mortals when they're speaking about themselves, their own actions. So we do a search from there, and we've got the list of verbs. People in the Homeric vocabulary study group will recognize all of these. The first one, me, I am. Second one, echo. Janet, do you want to go at that one?
I have.
Say me. I say, I speak. The fourth one, Amy. I go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a similar sort of thing from when we were doing the search before. This is all the list of the verbs, but if you click on them, it will actually give you the concordance, but in all forms of the verb. So it's selecting from that list of verbs that are used by females, but it's still showing you every time they're used. So just in the same way, we can go back to the query form and we can select word form, and that will narrow it down. The word form selected there. That will narrow it down to the first person, where it's used in the first person. Give it a moment. And let me try that again. I think I word forms in first person singular word form search. I'll try that again. It was working yesterday. There you go. And the same way, it split it out. There's all the times that the verb is used, but this only used 54 times in the first person singular spoken by a woman. And you can see there's two slightly different forms of it. One is Amy, that's EI, closing bracket to represent the smooth breathing, MI / to represent the acute accent. And then it's the same thing but with an apostrophe. And if we have a look at those, we can see that in this case it comes before a vowel, an alpha. And there's only one occurrence where it's actually spoken by a female. And so that's the only result you'll get this time. I'm the daughter of Aribas. So it sounds like it's a woman speaking, so that makes sense. So as you can imagine, you can change the criteria again. You could perhaps compare what verbs are used by female speakers and compare them to male speakers. You've just changed the gender. Again, everything else is already set up for you. All you need to do is just change that one thing. And again, similar verbs appearing at the top of the list, but there is a slightly different selection. And there are rather more words appearing in the list because there are more male speakers, and so they use a wider variety of different verbs. So the possibilities here, I think, are endless. You can do all sorts of different search patterns to do comparisons between mortals, immortals, speech and narrative, what sort of words are used. I think the possibilities are endless. So there we go.
Yeah, very, very, very informative as always. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Janet.